I'm going to show you how to change fractions into percentages, decimals. Now it's easier to change fractions into decimals and percentages when the denominator is a 10, 100 or even 1,000 and so on. So for example, 3/10. 3/10 is 0.3. If that was an 8, that would be 0.8. 8 out of 10, well, it's nearly 10 out of 10, isn't it? That's 80%, not 8%. So 8 out of 10 is not 8%. 8 out of 10, 8/10 is 80%. Now, what if you had something like this? 8 out of 100, 8 hundredths. 8 hundredths, quite a small fraction. That is actually 0.08. Look at the difference. Look at the difference between this question and this question, and look at the decimals here. That's your tenths column, that's your hundredths column. That's 8 hundredths. 8 hundredths, which is 8%. So let's say somebody gets 8 out of 100 in an exam, 8 out of 100 marks. That's only 8%. Let's suppose that was 82 hundredths. 82 hundredths. Well, now that would be 0.82. 0.82, 82%. Some fractions that you need to know, it's best to memorize these. Things like halves. Half, that's a half, 0.5, which you know, half, if somebody gets half the questions right, they've got 50%. You'll need to memorize this one as well, quarter. A quarter, 0.25, which is 25%. Remember back here, that was 0.82, 82%. 0.82, 82%. 0.25, 25%. Another one you could remember is a third. A third is 0.3 recurring. What does that mean, 0.3 recurring? 0.3 recurring means 0.333, it just carries on forever. But we just say 0.3 recurring because the 3 keeps on happening. So that's a shorthand way of writing this instead of writing 3's forever and ever. And that could be written as 33.3%. Another one similar to this one is your 2/3, 0.6 recurring, 66.6%. Sorry, that should be recurring and that should be recurring as well. So that's your basics over here. Now, I've said to you just a while ago, there could be a situation where the denominator is not a 10 or 100. So let's say for example, it's 2/5. So you can't just say, oh, this is 0.2. The denominator has to be a 10 or 100 or 1,000. I think in this case, we can make this into a 10 quite easily. Now think, what do I multiply the 5 by to get a 10? Times by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. What if you do to the bottom? You need to do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So 4/10, similar to this, 4/10 is 0.4. 40%. And compare the similarity with this question, this one here, and this one. They're very similar. The danger is some of you might think 4 out of 10, all right, 0.4. You might accidentally call it 4%. It's not 4%. This is not 4%. Here's another one. Let's suppose we have 3 out of 20, 3 20ths. That is not, don't automatically assume that's 0.03 or 0.3. Check. Look at that. Look at the number at the bottom. I said to you just a while ago the number needs to be 10 or 100. Well, in this case, I can make that 20 into 100. How? Well, what do I times the 20 by to get 100? Times by 5. 20 times 5 is 100. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. 3 times 5 is 15. So that's 15 out of 100, 15 hundredths. It's very similar to this question. Very similar. That's going to be 0.15. 15%. Let's try something a bit more challenging. Suppose we have 6 over 15 and I want to change that to a decimal, percentage, etc. So what do? Now remember, I told you just a while ago, denominator, prefer it if it was a 10 or 100, but it's not. And you start thinking, well, you might even be tempted to do this. What can I do to the 15 to make it into 100? What do I times the 15 by to make it into 100? Well, that's difficult. You're going to have a decimal number. I'd rather not do that. So, if I start off with 6 over 15, I'm going to play a little trick with this. I know I can change that 15 into a 5 and then change the 5 into 100, because I know 15 is in the 5 times table, 100 is in the 5 times table. So what can I do to the 15 to make it to a 5? Well, I can divide by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Or you can say 5 times 3 is 15. So if I divide by 3 at the bottom, I need to divide by 3 at the top as well. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now this becomes easier now. What do I do to the 5 to make it into 100? What do I times by? Or how many 5s go to 100? You can say 20 times by 20. 5 times 20 is 100. Whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. 2 times 20 is 40. That's 40 out of 100, 40 hundredths, which you know is, you can call it 0.40 or just 0.4. That's 40%. Remember, this question here is very similar to what we had over here just a while ago. Here we had 82 out of 100 to give you these. And here we have 40 out of 100. This might be your exam style question. Change 150 to a percentage. Well, the denominator needs to be a 10. So what I can do, make that 10. What do I times the 5 by to get 10? Times by 2. 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10. That's the same as 2 over 10, 2 tenths, which is 0.2. 20%. Some of you might think that's 2%. It's not. Just remember, 0.02 is 2%, whereas 0.2 is your 20%. Stick a 0 there to help you. Right, next one, 25%. We've seen that just a while ago. There you go, 25%, 0.25, quarter. 25% as a decimal, 0.25, and that's a quarter. Half as a percentage, we've seen that just a while ago, here it is. 50%, 0.5, or you can call it 0.5 zeros. You can always ignore the zero though. And this one we have seen over here. The one with the recurring, 2/3, 0.6 recurring. That is your 2/3.